All right, hello. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday, and hopefully everyone had a great weekend. It's very cold outside, so hopefully you're staying warm wherever you are watching this. Welcome to actually my very first HChiTV episode of Q&A with Amin here at Universal Title. And I plan to do a lot of these Q&A sessions with many different types of real estate professionals. I plan to do full-blown history of Baltimore. I'm going to interview chefs, local restaurant, interview architects about buildings that they build in Baltimore. So please, I will put a link to my Facebook page, the business Facebook page, and definitely click on it or like it, so that I'll put a lot more content in that page. So today's session, the reason why I want to sit down with Amin is one of the important part of a real estate transaction is the title part. I personally worked for a real estate title company for 11 years before I became a realtor, so this is a very special process for me. So without further ado, how are you doing, Amin?
I'm doing well.
All right, you have a good
Happy
weekend?
Monday. Yep.
All right.
Everything was great.
All right.
Great time. It was a little chilly, but got over it.
All right, sounds good. Now, if you guys have any questions about title process, any questions about with Amin, anything that you want to ask, please put in the comment section below, and we'll try to answer them. So let's get it going. All right.
All right. I want to thank Chi, first of all, the president, the director, and the producer of HChiTV. He's a one-man show, and he's tearing it up. This thing's gonna go national very soon.
That's right. Director, producer, executive producer,
right. Real estate agent,
editor. All right. Well, thank you, Amin.
My pleasure.
All right. So first of all, Amin, let's learn. I would like to learn about the people that I'm interviewing. So, at what point in your life did you start to think, well, let me become an attorney?
So, I've since I was maybe 6, 7, I had some attraction to becoming a dentist. And this lasted through the first semester of college, and I took biology, and that was the end of it. I hated science after that point. I couldn't do it. Wanted to be more analytical and just analyze a lot of stuff, come up with solutions. Not that science doesn't do that, of course it does, but in a different manner. So I went into political science. Graduated with a poli-sci degree from St. Mary's College, and then while I was in college, I was interning for a law firm, and just like the job, like the atmosphere, the clientele, and everything that it was about. So as soon as I graduated from college, I went to law school and actually got my degree from University of Baltimore Law School.
Okay. Actually, I got my undergrad business degree at University of Baltimore too.
Great school, local.
Was it before the new student building that was built, or?
Yeah. So it's funny because as soon as I graduated, they put up the next building. It was finished. So yeah,
nice and shiny, right?
That's right.
Old dingy building that you have to study. I think.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, I've known friends who are attorneys. Was the bar hard?
Yeah, it's funny. The thing about the bar is preparation for it is much harder than the actual exam.
Mm-hmm.
The way it works is, you for 2 to 3 months extended period, you're constantly learning and studying. You spend most of your day actually either in the classroom or studying post-class, and then by the time the 2 to 3 months preparation is over, it's a 2-day exam. Once you take the exam, though, if you're prepared properly and taking the right courses, it should not be as difficult as people make it sound. The preparation itself is much harder, just like with anything else in life.
Give you more stress.
Exactly.
Anticipation.
Keeps you on your toes, very much so.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm sure it's much more harder than the real estate exam. So.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Passed it the first time, so that's good. All right. So, what was your first job after law school?
So after I graduated and took the bar and passed it, right in the meantime, as soon as I passed the bar, I got hired by a debt collection law firm that focused on real estate. It was a foreclosure law firm. Did that about 9 months. While there, I knew my calling was different. I wanted to be in a happier space, just where the clientele and people were just in a happier and better mood. Collection, if you have any relationship to it or knowledge of it, it's just not a friendly environment, very stressful. The calls that you get from the clients and the consumers are just not happy calls in its nature. Having said that, while I was there, I made some great relationships. In fact, and we'll discuss this later, 4 of the attorneys currently with Universal Title, 4 of many, are from that law firm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I myself being one of those, the other 3 are in the Maryland area as well. So, for me, it's all about relationships. I find a positive in anything. So even when I was there and I knew it probably wasn't going to be a longevity thing for me, I knew that if I made correct relationships, that these were some talented folks that were there. And eventually, once I left and they left, and it just worked out that now 3 other people have been added to the UT law firm.
Well, I guess the other law firm.
Well, they're no longer in business.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to go there, but since you brought up the follow-up question,
Okay.
I disclosed it, yeah.
All right, well, then you don't have to worry about that.
No. But these are still qualified people that we have.
Yes. They didn't collect enough debt, I guess.
No, exactly.
All right. So how long have you been Universal Title?
So I joined Universal Title September of 2012, and it has been a smooth ride since. It's been great. I've had a great time. Every day it's a new challenge, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Great. Now, I didn't ask you before. Are you from Baltimore?
I'm originally from Iran. I was born there and raised there. I moved here in 2000 to the States. When I moved here, moved to Baltimore County, went to high school in Delaney. I'm not sure if many people know or not where that is. But after that, went to Southern Maryland for college and then UB for law school. So pretty much a local Maryland guy since I moved here.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Now, being in real estate, as we all know, Realtor, myself, find people houses. Lender lends people money so they can buy a house or you can pay cash. And a lot of times people don't even know what a title company does. They don't know until they actually sit at a table and there's a title attorney or a settlement agent to explain all the documents to them. So if you can just let the viewers know what a title company does.
Sure. So just a little, I would want to add something. We, somewhat what she was saying, we like to be more in the forefront of things. So we don't want to be seen for the first time or at least heard for the first time at closing. We would love to make contact with the buyers and sellers directly given the consent by the realtors. So I never want to be, heard of the first time when the buyers sit at the table. Having said that, we provide a few things. We provide 2 services in my experience and then 1 product. The first service is we run the title and work for the buyer to make sure that the title is clear. The way we do that is we have abstractors. And these folks, they go to the county and the courthouses and they basically get a 60-year chain of title on the property. Now, some properties in the city far extend that, but we only care about the last 60 years. And then they also run, in the meantime, judgments, bankruptcies, water bills, tax liens, and stuff like that. Anything that needs to be a matter of concern and discussion prior to closing. Once these items come back, we review it and we issue what's called a commitment, which is essentially an opinion of title from our standpoint. So we say this is the legal description of the property, these are all the matters that are standing or outstanding against the property. Now, some are transferable, which are your property taxes, your water, stuff like that, even though we make sure the amount is collected and due and current. However, the property taxes are still going to be paid the following year. So these are transferable items, so they're exceptions. The other items are called requirements. And what those are basically say a seller has a mortgage. Well, that has to be paid off as part of closing. That's not just going to carry over to the buyer and buyer to pay. First of all, it doesn't make sense. Second of all, it's just not how title insurance and title policies work. The second service that we provide is the settlement itself. So as a full-time real estate settlement service company, we also handle the closing. The closing itself is a big event. And later on we'll discuss how we feel about it versus how the industry has traditionally taken care of this event. At settlement, we have the buyers and the sellers, assuming they're not signing remotely. We conduct the settlement, provide the documents necessary, whether it's financing or cash, as well as we handle the transfer and the transaction of the money itself. The money goes into an escrow account, and from our escrow account, we disperse it based on the settlement sheet that we have. So that includes the seller proceeds, if there are any, the commissions to be paid out, the government and the county taxes and the bills.
It's called wet state, right? In
Correct. So Maryland's a wet settlement state, which means as soon as you close, you should be able to disperse that money out of your escrow and basically fund the transactions and close it. As part of the settlement and the title process, we also record the necessary documents, whether it's a deed only if it's a cash deal, or a deed and the deed of trust if it's a finance transaction. Now, those are the two services. The product itself is title insurance. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we are in the insurance business. This is why we run the title search. This is why we do all the necessary and the due diligence to make sure that at the end of the day, we are transferring a clean title to the property, right, or a good title. And the insurance itself, historically within 30 days to be issued, we now have the option of doing an instant policy, which means we can issue it right at the day of closing and hand it over to the consumer at the settlement table. So that's essentially what a title company does in about a 2-3 minute summary.
Okay. I want to actually, as we were talking, I was thinking about other more in-depth questions. So going back to when someone wants to buy a house, a title company goes back to at least 60 years or even longer, because the main reason is to make sure that the transfer of title from, at least for the last 60 years, is correct from owner to owner.
Correct.
Right? And have you seen there's a defect of that before?
Yeah, we have. I mean, it's not something that you want to deal with, but sometimes you have a scenario where the deed out was say from the 60s or 70s and it still has an issue with it. One thing that comes to mind is estate proceedings, and that's ESTATE. The Maryland estate matters changed since the 1970s. So all the stuff that we deal with now would be different. For example, if the last person that's on title passed away in the 1960s, and believe me, that happens sometimes, you're going to treat it a lot differently than you would be in certain matters. So that all depends on the case-by-case basis, but for the most part, a lot of the transactions that you're going to deal with are pretty more recent than that, obviously. So a lot of them are going to be in the early 2000s and after.
Gotcha. And you mentioned legal description, and the legal description is really the, as I call it, the real address of the property. The address that you get mailed to, that's the post office address. So it's what the post office gives you, but sometimes in the history of the property, it changes, right?
Correct. So it's the address that we know of is a common address, and it's what for informational purposes only when you enter the title business. The actual description of the property is a legal description, and what that is basically the metes and bounds and the calls of the property as to where it's located. It's typically done by a surveyor, an engineer. They basically enter that into the history of the title. So an attorney prepares the deed and then attaches the surveyor certification of the legal description, and thereafter it just becomes a legal description of the property. So that's really how it works when it comes to the legal description. But that's what we use for the transfer of title. If we had just written, say, 123 Main Street, and just did that wouldn't be a proper transfer of the title. And yeah, the common addresses actually do change. Sometimes the lots get subdivided, or they have a line adjustment, and that changes. For example, 123 Main Street may now be 123A Main Street or 123B Main Street. So if you just use the common address, you're going to be in a lot of trouble after that.
That's right. Been there, done that. So.
Not with us.
So there's some people, we explain a lot about what title company is, and sometimes there's deed transfers from. That says on the deed it says no title search done. What's your recommendation of people thinking about not using a title company or don't need title insurance?
Right. I would always suggest using someone that does this for a living. Just like everything else in life, it's worth paying a little bit more money to make sure someone who's doing it does this as a part of their daily life. There are so many times where the people just transfer title without actually doing the proper research on it, or they do it themselves.
Or a family attorney or something.
Or a family attorney, right? Exactly. You may be experienced in something other than real estate. The problem with that is the moment you switch the title, and we look at this as maybe paperwork, but this is more than just paperwork. This is people's rights and obligations on their property, right? So, for example, if Chi and I own a property together, and we want to devise the remaining interest to somebody else. And thereafter, that person just goes and does a deed transfer after we both pass away and to the next person. Well, it's likely that we were the only two people insured on that under that deed. So the moment that they transfer that title out of our name, and then it just screws up everything that stands with respect to our title insurance. And we just had this come up. So essentially, what would happen was that the seller had a relocation company. So the seller, if you know anything about relocation or experience with it, they basically tried to get on title, the reload company. So the reload company obtained title back in May of 2016. But once they did that, they basically took the name of the insured off title. So the person who actually owned the property was insured under the title insurance policy. Well, not anymore. So when we found something on the chain of title that dated back to 1990, and we requested a letter of indemnity, the underwriter declined it, saying, well, my insured is no longer on title. So now we're in a position where there's no title policy. The seller's not on the chain of title, and we have to close the deal within 2 to 3 weeks, and we just don't have enough information. We don't have the social security of the debtor. We don't have them in the chain of contact. So it causes a lot of problems and issues. So as a real estate agent, if you get someone that has a question about transferring title, you can go and please contact me or anybody else that does this for a living, and just make sure that it's taken care of properly. It's more than just paperwork, and it could really derail the next transaction, that's for sure.
Definitely. So actually something I thought about, and I just put it down, I want to go through a few of the ways of owning a property. All right. Sure. So as a single individual who's going to buy a house, the deed title, transferring title from seller to the new owner is called sole ownership or
sole owner. Yeah.
Sole owner. All right. So it's nice and clean, very easy.
Very simple.
Yes. So if a married couple buys a house, married together, what would be the preferred?
The preferred would be tenants by the entirety, unless they have problems or they know they're going to have problems. They do tenants in common, but it would be tenants by the entirety.
And what does that mean if if someone unfortunately passes away?
Right. Then the surviving spouse gets the property 100%. Then it's also the highest protection you can get against judgments and certain, of course, exceptions, but. For the most part, unless the judgment is against both individuals, then it's not going to attach to the property.
So what's the difference between joint tenants and tenants by entirety?
So joint tenants is not when the folks are not married. So for example, it's two brothers, two sisters, family matters, or really maybe folks that are engaged and they want to get married. So typically that's what they choose. And again, it just comes down to the buyers and their preference. But we have three options: tenants by the entirety, joint tenancy, and then tenancy in common.
All right, so
tenancy in common being the last one. That's a split percentage. So basically, you can designate it. So if you're two people and one person is putting up most of the money for the purchase of the house, and in return they want 80% interest in the property, you can do that. You can designate on the deed 80%, 20%. Or 50-50. Right. If it's silent, it's 50-50.
Because if that person, unfortunately, if that person passes away, then that 50% or 80% or 60% goes to that heir or estate.
Right, exactly. So it goes automatically to the estate of that person. Right. So that's why it gets more complicated. If you know the relationship is very close and it's by blood, people just do joint tenancy, or if it's married, tenants by the entirety, because what it does is automatic transfer of interest into a full transfer interest. So you avoid all the probate and the estate matters.
Okay. All right. Yes. Got that? All right. Well, thank you for watching. Whoever's been watching, thank you. I know there have been people coming in and out, and thank you for we rock. Thank you so much. So let's continue a little bit further. Title insurance insures a title,
right,
backwards.
Exactly.
Or in arrears.
Exactly. So we have different types of insurances in life that you obviously deal with. Most concerning people, individuals, we care about the property. At the end of the day, what we're insuring is a title to the property. That is the reason why we run the 6-year search. That is the reason why we run bankruptcy and stuff like that. We want to know how this property itself, what are against this property and what could be if this buyer comes onto title. So where most people insure somebody's health or somebody's assets, we insure the property. So when we insure the title, we have two types of insurance. There is the owner's title insurance, which is the buyer, the person that's going to be living there or investing in it. And then the second one is the lenders, assuming the property's financed. What it insures the lender is that they're in a first lien position, so that the lender's interest, if needs to be redeemed or foreclosed upon, it's the best lien they can get. So there's nothing else that will trump it, and then they don't get all of the money. The owner's title insurance is completely different. What that is basically saying that you are the owner of the property. There was a deed that conveyed the property to you, subject to these exceptions, which will be your regular exceptions, property taxes, water bill, right-of-ways, and stuff like that. You have a good title. Now, if you take out a mortgage at the time of purchase, that's also going to be an exception on your policy. But by no means are the prior owners' judgments, liens, and stuff like that attached to your property. Mm-hmm. So those are something that's covered. So, for example, Chi buys a house this year. We issue him a title policy. 6 months from now, a gentleman or a lady pops up and knocks on his door and says, "I have a half interest in this property." Well, assuming that was disclosed in the land records, and Chi is covered. And even if it's not, Chi is covered and they can file a claim. Now, whether that's paid out, that's a different story. That's something that can be taken care of. But if you assume that Chi doesn't have this policy, Chi's going to be in a lot of trouble. First of all, just to get the attorneys to defend them are going to cost them a lot of money. And the premiums are very affordable compared to the sales price. I mean, they range anywhere between 0.25% to less than 1%.
It's only once.
It's only once, exactly. For owner's title policy, it's only once. And depending on which you buy, you can also transfer the property into a trust, a family trust, if that's what you wish to do. The lender's policy is different. Every time you take out a loan on the subject property, you have to buy a new title insurance for the lender. So if you refinance, yep. Exactly, you have to keep buying title insurance. But for the owner's policy, one time you buy it and you're peace of mind. I mean, it's a great money spent investment for one of your biggest purchases you're going to make in your life.
Right. You have car insurance. You have health insurance.
Right.
So definitely you want to have title insurance. All right. So are there a couple of scenarios that you just unfortunately can give our viewers that why a title we just cannot settle?
Right. So title insurance is basically, I don't want to say security blanket, but essentially acts as that way for most sellers when they are unfortunately in a position where the title has a problem. Now, if you can imagine how old these properties are, especially in Baltimore City, some of these are 200-year-old properties. So there may be something on the chain of title that when this seller for your transaction purchased the property, their title company was comfortable with. Or their title underwriter was comfortable with insuring over, which means that item is not necessarily taken care of. It's just been insured over and is promised as a coverage matter. However, say that title company is no longer in business now. If you don't have title insurance, I mean, if you're just banking on the title company being in business and they're no longer in business, there's no documentation they can give us to prove the worthiness of that insurance or lack thereof in this matter. So if you don't have title insurance, that means that you're in a position where you may have to pay off that lien if it's a lien. However, if you do have title insurance, it's likely that the underwriter is still in business because most underwriters do stay in business. Some obviously have gone out. But if you have one of the top 4 reputable underwriters, which most title companies use at this point, you're protected. I mean, one way or the other. It may delay closing depending on how much notice is given, but you're certainly protected. There's going to be some kind of resolution to that.
Okay. All right. And a lot of times from my experience too is that fortunately someone wants to buy a house and the prior owner or the current owner, not even the current owner, it could be 2 owners ago where there's an old mortgage lien that's still most likely unreleased, that's been paid off, or the bank has been out of business. So that's from my experience that a lot of times that's what it is. Or judgments. It would be a common name. There's hundreds and thousands of judgment against a very common name.
Right.
And there's sometimes you have to do certain things to make sure that's either taken care of or cleared.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. I just want to see if there's any questions. I know people have been making comments. I'm going to stroll down a little bit to see if there's anyone. This is my title company when I bought the house in 2004. Oh, okay. Help with a lot of potential problems. So that's great. UT is the best. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
You're the boss. Melanie, hi. Hi, Amin.
Hello.
All right, so let's keep going. So Baltimore, and I've done this before. Ground rent. So for people who is not familiar with ground rent, what is ground rent, Amin?
All right, so this goes back to centuries ago. Essentially, it's a concept from Great Britain that we picked up. It's a common law matter. So they looked at it as back then there was the king's land, and you could rent the land, but you couldn't own it. So this concept somehow carried over to Baltimore and some surrounding counties, Baltimore County and then Anne Arundel County being the other. So what it is that it's an annual rent on the lot that upon which there are improvements. So we'll just use Main Street again, 123 Main Street. Joe Smith owns the property. They improved building and dwelling. However, the lot upon which that property is built is owned by somebody else. Back in the day, 100 and 150 years ago, this was a great investment. If you saw it as whether it was a 4% or 6% cap rate on your money and your annual rent was $120, $240, I mean, that's a pretty good investment back in the day when, $120 and $240 was a lot of money. Now, maybe not so much. So now you get bigger investors who have 200, 300, maybe thousands of these ground rents that they own. But that's essentially where the concept came from. Laws have changed regarding it. You cannot create it anymore. There was, for a 4-year span, some of them were abolished and extinguished, and that was held to be procedurally unsound and not constitutional. So, but now the way it works is that most lenders, for our purposes, if they're local, they may be okay with it to just insure over it without having any problems. Some lenders, if they're out-of-state lender, they may require that these items to be redeemed as part of your closing. So, as a real estate agent, this may kind of put you in a position where you need to learn a lot more about ground rent than you may want to. So here's how you basically attack it. So when you want to put an offer, or if you want to get a listing, you need to pull a copy of the deed for several reasons. One, you know who you're going to be dealing with. And then two, you can see if the property is subject to a ground rent or a fee simple. If you see that the property is subject to a ground rent, and again, we can cover this at some point, but the deed itself in one of the paragraphs will say subject to a ground rent, or will say fee simple. So if the property is subject to a ground rent, then you want to see if the ground rent is registered. If the ground rent is registered, then basically it's a bang play. We just send a notice to the ground rent holder as a title company to see if they can give us a statement. We treat it just like an HOA account. We want to make sure it's current and paid as part of closing. However, if you don't do that, and if you don't do the homework and you submit an offer for a fee simple, or if you're a listing agent, even worse, and you accept an offer for a fee simple, but your seller has a ground rent property, well, now you're in a position as a seller or the listing agent where you have to conform to the terms of the contract and provide a fee simple property, which means that ground rent has to be redeemed on behalf of the buyer, which basically includes a deed to be transferred, and then a payoff amount, which could be either 4%, 6%, or 12% of the cap rate, depending on when it was created. So logistically, as a realtor, what you want to know is who you're dealing with from the deed, and then also whether the property is subject to a ground rent or fee simple. If it's ground rent, you can contact the seller, your seller, to find out if they've gotten any recent invoices, or also find out if the property is registered with the ground rent on the SDAT page. And there's a top link on the right side. There's a hyperlink. You click on it, and it will show you the registration as well as who to contact, their info. And then it makes it a lot easier, and also avoids a lot of awkwardness later on, because we've had scenarios where everything wasn't fee simple, the appraisal wasn't fee simple, however the title wasn't ground rent, and either the seller or the listing agent had to pay for the redemption of it.
Yeah, it's very important as a realtor to disclose correctly in the listing either ground rent or fee simple. Fee simple means that it's not ground rent, it's the building and the land itself, it's under one owner. So, the other question, going just a little bit deeper in ground rent. So if we do not know who the ground rent holder is, and there is ground rent to the property, what do you have to do as a title company?
Right, so that depends on two things. Whether it's going to be sold subject to the ground rent. If it's sold subject to the ground rent, then we just escrow. We escrow that from the seller. It's 3 years of dues plus $650 in attorney fees. The money sits in escrow until a certain point after 3 years. If no one comes claiming, the money gets dispersed back to the seller. However, if the property is being transferred as a fee simple, or it's a requirement to be fee simple, whether by the lender or the contract, then we redeem it through the estate. State of Maryland basically is the entity where, or the governing body where you would redeem it from. And then basically everything gets taken care of with them. There's a notice that needs to be placed on the property for 30 days to give notice to any possible ground rent holders. And then thereafter, it's a 3-month waiting application period. You submit the application along with certain affidavits, and then after 3 months, you pay the full payoff amount based on the cap rate, and then they will...
Because the seller cannot say, I'm going to sell it to you for
Correct.
$8,000. There's an actual formula to it.
Correct, exactly. So what happens is that depending on when the ground rent was created, so if it was before 1880, then it's a 4%. Between 1880 and 1982, it's 6%. And after 1982, it's a 12% cap rate on the transaction, on the ground rent. So then you would redeem it with the state of Maryland, and they will handle all the paperwork. But it would certainly depend on whether the property is being transferred as part of leasehold or fee simple. Leasehold is escrow. Fee simple, you get the redemption with the state. That's for unregistered ground rent.
So all the things that we talk about ground rent, this is what a title company does, because transferring title from one another and to have ground rent specifically, because actually it's 2 chains of title.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
So when you redeem it from two chains of title back into one, so you want to, if there's ground rent, you want to make sure that the chain of title on the ground rent side is transferring correctly,
Correct.
and the upside, which is the improvements, the building itself is transferred correctly. So it's very important. That's why you pay title insurance to make sure that it's everything is transferred correctly.
Correct.
Actually, we had a viewer asking a question specifically. Is Universal Title an investor-friendly title company for wholesaling and doing double closings and assignments?
Yes, we are actually. Big part of this office's business here in Baltimore is from investors. Maybe 10 to 20% of our revenue comes from investors, and they really keep us active during the colder months, because that's traditionally when they go out to purchase properties. And we do everything. I mean, we do foreclosures right out of the attorneys. We do short sales, and we do wholesales, assignments, all of them. Double closings, I think, is one of the items that was mentioned yesterday. We certainly do all of that, and we're very investor friendly, and we appreciate the business. So certainly, I think Mr. Craig Smith was the person that replied. So we would love to sit down with him. Certainly reach out to him, and then go from there.
Okay. Now, from experience, do a little bit deeper on that. On these foreclosure homes or bank-owned properties, REOs, are there certain things that you typically don't see on the regular standard sale versus a foreclosure or REO property?
Right. So the trustee sale is a little bit more difficult for the buyer to grasp. The way it works is that as soon as you win that bid in the foreclosure auction, you are essentially pseudo owner of the property, in the sense that all the water bills and the tax bills and the interest from that day on is paid out by you eventually once you close. So even though you're waiting for the judge to ratify that foreclosure sale, you're still liable for all those bills. So the sooner the foreclosure case proceeds and is ratified, as well as the sooner you can close, the better for you, because you pay less in interest, which are usually about 5 to 6% to the trustee, and then you pay less in the per diem for the taxes as well as the water. If you have a new investor who's just recently started buying foreclosures at foreclosure auctions, and they kind of find it hard to believe, because they're used to the settlement date being the date of transfer and all the bills. But it's from the date of the sale when it comes to foreclosure auction.
Because most of the time, too, the buyer will have to pay all the transfer charges and recording fees.
Correct.
Too,
the trustees don't pay.
They don't pay.
Yep.
So, and they're buying it as is. So anything's wrong with the property is you, as a buyer, have to take care of. Again, that's why you have a title company with all the things that's going on, foreclosure proceedings and filing with the prior owner and title issues. You want to make sure that, again, have a title attorney that's that's professional and have done this many times to make sure it's transferred correctly.
Right.
Fantastic. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Universal Title. How many Universal Title offices are there?
So we just opened our 14th office in Pikesville in Baltimore County, and that extends us from practicing in, we're in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, practicing in those 3 jurisdictions.
Fantastic.
Very excited.
All right, and where's the headquarters?
The headquarters is now in McLean, Virginia.
Okay, I think they recently moved.
Yes, it was in Annandale, and we moved at the end of December.
Okay, who are the head attorneys?
So the head attorneys are it's a family-owned and operated title company. David K. Mason was the founder. Jennifer Mason is the president. Jennifer Mason Halstead, and then David Mason is the CEO of the company. And each office it's operated and managed by its own managing attorney. I happen to manage the Baltimore City office, which is in Canton, and we have 2 satellite offices, one within the RE/MAX office on Boston Street, and then another one within the Credit Union in Baltimore County in Nottingham.
Fantastic. All right. Growth is good.
Growth is fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So what's different between, I think you touched on it a little bit before, what's different between Universal Title and the other title companies that's on?
Right, so I took some notes actually, wanted to be more specific on this. So, and hopefully I'm speaking correctly on behalf of the entire company. So we're very systematic. We have an organizational chart, everyone knows what the task is. If you ever come into our offices for closing and just talking to the folks, you know that they have a very sense of autonomy. The processors know exactly what they're doing. They're very friendly, very courteous, and they're just on their own. They're working on their own terms. They're being supervised and managed. However, they're very independent. One has been with me since 2014. The other 2 have been with me since early 2016. So they're very experienced in what they do, and it's always a pleasure working with them. Sometimes I just stay in the background and just watch them work, and it's fantastic. I constantly hear about how independent they are, and it's kind of made me leverage my own time and the company's time.
You're kind of like executive chef of a restaurant. You just oversee everything.
Right, except I burn everything. Yeah, so we're very systematic. Everyone has its own place within the company. And it's a very important place. From the top to the bottom or bottom to top, everyone has a role that is specific to them, and they're very good at that. It's harder for someone else to do. Second thing, we're very community involved. We take a small portion of every file that we close company-wide, and we donate it to a charity of choosing for the neighborhood and the community. So we're all about giving back, and we want to give back, and all the jobs that first of all, we're constantly looking to hire more talented people. We love talented people. We love people that are driven, business-minded, someone who loves to, give back, customer service-wise. And then we put an attorney at the table. If you're used to doing a lot of transactions, you've seen that some title companies may put a title agent on the table. No disrespect. that they put a title agent on the table. We like to put attorneys on the table. We think it's better for the presentation, and also it's good for the referral partner. They get a sense that the same attorney who worked the file from the start to finish is now here doing the closing for the client. It just gives a lot more value to that referral. And then the last thing, one of several things, the customer service. We are very customer service driven. As I said in the beginning, we're not afraid to call the buyer or call the seller directly, assuming it's okay with our referral partners. And we want to just kind of take the transaction and take the stress away, at least from the title aspect of it. We know you got the repairs, you got the inspections, the appraisal, and the lenders, and all that stuff that you got to deal with. But if we can take that part of the way and make you focus on the other aspects of it, we can. And thereby, a lot of times when we run into a title problem that we need to disclose or something that we need to tell the buyers, then most agents feel comfortable telling us, go ahead and reach out to my buyer directly. It's no problem. And we love that. And again, I don't want to have to talk to that buyer for the first time when I'm sitting there closing. I would love to talk to them at some point before then.
Okay, fantastic. So, is there what's the next? Is there a big move of Universal Title?
So the next one, I mean, our our mission is to continue to set industry standards, and we want to do that by building relationships, and we're going to do it through experience, dependability, and being professional. Tough situations arise, and they do in some transactions. It's how you handle those situations. We want to be professional. We are professional. We handle ourselves in a certain manner that regardless of the issue, that we've done the best we can do to make sure the situation moves forward. We love everyone that we're working with. We love to build more relationships and help out more referral partners. The way we do this is we provide a lot of support, whether it's through manners like this, through training, through social media and co-branding, everything that we need to do to be able to make sure that our referral partners are not only our partners. We don't want to be a referral vendor. We want to be a referral partner.
Right.
We want to take their business to the next level, whether it's through helping them through the title side of the matter, whether it's helping them through understanding some of the nuances with titles. So, for example, if they have a listing that they have questions about, they can approach us first. Everything that kind of makes them focus more on their growth of the business and less on what we can take away from them.
Right, because even I've been in the real estate business for quite some time. I worked for a title company for 11 years. I know some questions or answers, but if there's certain title questions specific, I would definitely refer my clients to Amin to answer them directly, and that's why we're a partner in the relationship. So that's great. That's fantastic. Well, thank you again. I want really joining us. I know it's our first Q&A session, and thank you for watching. And I'm just going to go through see if there's anyone that's. Let's see here. If there's anyone.
Hope we didn't bore anyone.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I know title. It's always a little bit.
Titles, yeah, super exciting.
Very exciting. But hey, without title, we can close. We can close on transactions. So, thank you once again. This is Chi of Keller Williams Legacy Metropolitan, HChiTV.
Amin at Universal Title.
All right. Well, have a great Monday. And if you have any questions after watching this video and you want to ask more specific questions about your property or a friend's property or family's property, there's always something happening. Feel free to put in the comment section below or send me a private message or even a message. I'll definitely tag him after this video. Okay? So awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good week.